Deep within a dense, mysterious forest, two siblings named Hansel and Gretel lived with their father and stepmother in a small, humble cottage. Times were hard, and the family often struggled to find enough food to eat. One fateful night, after a particularly meager meal, Hansel and Gretel overheard their stepmother persuading their father to abandon them in the woods, hoping that with fewer mouths to feed, the family might survive. Though their father was reluctant, the stepmother's words weighed heavily, and a plan was set in motion. Hansel, ever resourceful, quietly stepped outside under the cover of darkness and gathered smooth white pebbles, filling his pockets before returning to bed. The next morning, their stepmother led Hansel and Gretel deep into the forest, under the guise of gathering firewood. As they walked, Hansel dropped the pebbles one by one, leaving a trail behind. When night fell and their parents did not return, Hansel assured Gretel that they could find their way home by following the glimmering stones shining under the moonlight. Step by step, they retraced their path and safely returned to their cottage. Their father was overjoyed, but their stepmother was not pleased. Soon after, the siblings were taken even deeper into the forest, this time with no chance for Hansel to collect pebbles. Thinking quickly, Hansel dropped crumbs of bread as they walked, hoping to mark their way. But as dusk descended, they discovered that birds had eaten every last crumb. Lost and afraid, Hansel and Gretel wandered through the forest, searching for any sign of hope. After many long hours, a magical sight appeared before them. A house built entirely of sweet treats. The walls were made of gingerbread. The roof was covered in thick icing, and candies decorated every surface. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, so they eagerly broke off pieces and began to eat. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and a kindly old woman invited them inside. She offered them delicious food and a warm bed, and the siblings felt their worries melt away. But the old woman was not kind. She was a wicked witch who had built her candy house to lure children in. Her plan was to fatten Hansel up and eat him. The next morning, she locked Hansel in a cage and forced Gretel to do chores, preparing for her terrible feast. Each day, the witch would check to see if Hansel was growing plumper, but clever Hansel offered her a thin bone instead of his finger through the bars, tricking her into thinking he was still too skinny. Finally, growing impatient, the witch decided to eat Hansel anyway. She ordered Gretel to check the oven, intending to push her in and roast her first. But brave Gretel saw through the witch's plan. Pretending not to understand how the oven worked, she lured the witch closer. Then, with all her strength, Gretel shoved the witch into the oven and slammed the door shut. Hansel and Gretel freed themselves and searched the witch's house. They discovered chests filled with precious jewels and treasures. With their hearts full of hope, they gathered as much as they could carry and made their way home, guided by the song of birds and the light of the sun. When they finally reached their cottage, their father embraced them with tears of joy. The wicked stepmother was gone, and the family was reunited at last. With the witch's treasure, Hansel and Gretel's family never went hungry again. Together, they celebrated their bravery, their love for each other, and the triumph of hope over despair. And so, the tale of Hansel and Gretel reminds us that even in the darkest woods, courage and cleverness can lead us safely home. Dear kids, remember, bravery, clever thinking, and kindness will always guide us out of the darkest forests. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Kids Channel TV for more magical fairy tales and bedtime stories every week.